My name is Yasser Ibrahim. I'm one of the academic clinical fellows in University of Liverpool Hospitals NHS Trust, and I'm also an honorary lecturer in the Faculty of Health and Life Sciences in University of Liverpool. Today, I wanted to share an experience that I had with medical students and pose a question at the end. So, um, in my work, I'm supposed to be also educating medical students and assisting them on their hospital placements. And then we faced a problem. The COVID pandemic hit. And with all the restrictions that were in place, we had two main problems. Number one, we had to minimize the number of students engaged in hospital placements. And we had a reduced number of operative lists, which is one of the points of having students attend hospital placements. And then we came up with an idea. The solution was to use a virtual reality setup in order to engage the students, since they cannot attend the operating lists because of the restrictions. We got our hands on a virtual reality set, and this is a video I would like to share it with you of one of the students participating in this virtual reality set. Basically, they were asked to perform an entire surgery on their own, which is, I understand, not really expected of them, but the idea was to teach them and let them get familiarized with the surgery and with the tools that we use inside surgery so that they get a better understanding of how trauma and orthopedics works. In their eyes, in the virtual reality headset, this is what they see. Basically, they are prompted to do actions. In this case, they are fixing a hip fracture with an intramedullary nail. It's very intuitive program that we got our hands on, and they can even inside the operating room order an X-ray so that they can see what exactly they're doing and how far they go. The session program was basically divided into three parts. One part was a bit more theoretical, where we were talking about different options of managing hip fractures. That was basically assisted with a PowerPoint presentation and a live sawbone workshop at the end. And then I went through the surgical technique that was used for in order to introduce intramedullary nailing. And we took 20 minutes per student so that they can go through the virtual reality setup. I was usually right there by their side, explaining everything so that they don't get too dissociated. This was done to 17 students. This was done with 17 students across 6 sessions, and the feedback was overwhelming. All the aspects that were related to virtual reality got 80% strongly agree and above, and some of them just agreeing, but there was no disagree or neutral or strongly disagree. And in the qualitative part of the feedback, the question was what changes could be made to the day to suit your individual learning style? And people just said, we want more. They said more time, more surgeries, longer time. And also some people suggested having it as an adjuvant to seeing theater live as well, so that they can understand the surgery better when they see it live. And in the section of any other comments or constructive feedback, again, it was overwhelmingly positive. Everyone was really happy with what happened with the experience that they had. And that kind of gave me some inspiration to have a look at what the relevant literature says. And basically, simulation is probably one of the best ways in order to get information across. In a publication called a Critical Review of Simulation-Based Medical Education and Research, basically it says that simulation is effective in many domains and has been found to be superior to traditional clinical education. Of course, with everything, there are advantages and disadvantages. Advantages of VR in my opinion, are much greater than the disadvantages. They're totally immersive, dynamic, adaptive, interactive. They have repeatable scenarios where someone can do the same thing over and over again until he gets it right. Safe on the patient and on the student psychologically. And the idea of introducing gamification of learning, I think it's very interesting. I think it gets the best engagement I've ever seen. And there is technology today that the program itself can offer a virtual debrief and feedback. The pictures on the right basically simulate technology that's available today, where a medical student can approach a patient in the ER and um, examine them. The patient talks to them, tells them the complaint, they examine them, they pick up the stethoscope, they listen to their chest, and then they can hear sounds through their visual reality set. They can shine a torch in their eyes and see how it reacts. However, there are some drawbacks related to this. Of course, it's not suitable for every educational opportunity. There are things that need some sort of tactile feedback as well. For example, putting in a cannula or putting a tube down a patient's throat or something. It's not ideal, and mannequin-based training might be a bit better. And of course, setup, implementation, and familiarity with the new technology. Since this is not really that old, people need to start to get used to it. Educators and students alike. Um, and then I had a look at the literature related to cost. And in a publication titled Virtual Reality and the Transformation of Medical Education that was published in Future Healthcare Journal in 2019 by Dr. Jack Pottle, he basically compared the costs to a standard ALS course, the Advanced Life Support course, which costs about 1,140 pounds. And he compared it to the entire setup of a VR, which costs about 3,000 pounds. Of course, this single setup will probably be used across many students. However, there were some shortcomings of comparison. He did not state anything about depreciation. He did not say how many he will need per course and when they would be acquired. And he did not mention anything also about the cost of the program itself. So he included the computer and the VR set, but he did not account for the program that's going to be used. And they're not really that available and probably very expensive. Another comparison of cost that I found, it basically did a cost utility analysis of virtual and mannequin-based simulation. And in their conclusion, they said that there was no significant difference in quantitative measures of learning or performance. However, the virtual simulation activity had a more favorable cost utility ratio of about $1 as compared to 3.6. And this is where we can talk about what can be the future of virtual reality. Um, Basically, the sky's the limit. Um, there is a term that's being used currently called collaborative virtual reality, where basically multiple people can log into the same scenario and assist each other, or it could be an assessor assessing someone's ability to examine a patient. It could be a virtual anatomy dissection session where 4 or 5 or 6 they hang around a cadaver, a virtual cadaver instead of a body donor, and dissect together and discuss their findings together. Um, Perks of course, it's not the same as the real thing, but perks of this is that the students or the assessors, they don't need to be in the same room, the same building, the same continent even. And you can get, and this is as real as it gets, um, or as real as it could be. And this is the question I would like to ask you guys: what do you think in your practice can virtual reality be applied? In the end of my talk, I would like to thank um, 2 people who were involved in this. Number one, I would like to thank Professor Lyndon Mason, who's a honorary associate professor in the Faculty of Health and Life Sciences, and he's a consultant trauma and orthopedic surgeon in our trust as well. And I would like to thank Dr. Victoria Tippett, who's the Director of Medical Education and Educator Development in the Faculty of Health and Life Sciences. I'm happy to take any questions anyone would like to ask, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Yasser. That was really interesting. Thank you for your talk. Um, just while we wait for any questions to come in the chat, or if anyone wants to ask, share their webcam or the mic, then that's absolutely fine. Just raise your hand and we'll make sure you can do that. Yasser, just a couple of questions, if that's okay from me. I've looked at VR quite a lot in the past, through various roles. Couple of questions that spring to mind is for the actual VR content, so the virtual content that you see, not the equipment. Who d- who developed that for you? Is that something that you bought in or you purchased, or is it a particular software, or was it developed in collaboration with yourself with a specialist team?
No, so basically, this software was already available. We got it through, so the software that I've seen and the one that we've been used, this was originally directed towards the nursing staff so that they know about the equipment and for surgeons to get an idea about the how the system works.
Okay.
And we got it for free thanks to the company that basically works with us in providing prosthesis to the trust. And we used that and we just kind of tweak the way that we would present it to the students so that it will be a bit more relevant to them rather than them knowing what exactly the steps are. Is that just they get a general feel of how it goes inside the operating room.
Yeah.
But there are content available now directed towards medical students
Yeah.
specifically, and basically they don't need a fancy computer or anything. They can basically log on, and the servers are somewhere else,
Yeah.
use their own virtual reality headset and log in and get the content online, the program itself online.
Yeah, that kind of touches on what was going to be my follow-up question. So one of the things that I've found with VR particularly is the logistics of it, because obviously, as you said, the equipment is so expensive. So for example, if you have 50 or 100 students, but you only have a couple of headsets available in your facilities or on campus, how do you manage the logistics? Do they have to book a slot so they can access the equipment, or do you kind of have group sessions where they rotate and give each other feedback, or how does that work?
Yeah, so the headset itself is not that expensive. What was expensive was the computer itself because it had the program.
Okay.
There is technology, like I said, that there are servers that you can log in through your own normal laptop. Doesn't have to be like a specific gaming laptop or anything, and then you can get the content from a different server where you don't
Right.
need a powerful computer. The virtual headset itself is not that expensive, but in our case, we had two. Of course, because of COVID, we had a limited amount of participants every single time. Maximum was six. So we
Right.
had two computers running simultaneously, and people
Okay.
kind of enjoyed even looking at it and looking at
Yeah.
how the student reacts with it and how what the things that he says. It was kind of entertaining, and I don't think people lost their interest in the middle of it.
Yeah. I assume that would be really helpful as well. So you're constantly getting peer feedback on you if they can
Yeah,
observe what you're doing in real time.
absolutely.
Great. Okay, so we've got one question from Shang Liu. So he says, thank you for the talk. And he asks, in the VR setup, do you involve haptic feedback as well? This may be important for surgeons.
No, there wasn't any haptic feedback in that setup.
Okay, great. Okay, so if there's no other questions, if anyone wants to ask any, put your hand up. No. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your talk, Yasser. That was great. I know you have to leave a little bit early today, so thank you for going first.